Brand is not just logo, it's not just colors, it's not just campaigns, it's not just video. Brand is every single touch point that a customer has with us as representatives of the company. Everything that we do that is aligned to the same North Star within the brand is what secures the next customer. So why would we not be investing in the way that we show up, in the way that customers relate to us, how prospects view us and believe in us?
Is it more difficult to manage expectations of a 4.5-year-old or the CFO?
Ooh, really? That's a really good question. I will have to say my kids are a little harder to manage. They're like, you know how like there are all these memes about kids, comparing kids to like little drunk people? That's what it is. Like they wake up and they decide that their day sucks and your day sucks too now, right? Because of the tantrums.
Welcome everyone to the latest episode of Speakeasy from Transmission. We are here in the CIVANA Spa Hotel where we've been running our first of our leadership sessions on brand storytelling. I'm joined today by the Chief Marketing Officer at Kyriba, April Moh. April, thank you for joining us for the latest episode.
Thank you for having me. It's been a wonderful event over here.
It's great to have you. April has a really interesting background, from starting her career in PR and comms to moving to now into marketing leadership, and equally with work outside of the industry with your relationship with Stand With Asian Americans and a new mother as well.
Relatively new. 2 under 5.
That's quite the challenge. So really want to dig into how you get that balance. Without further ado, cheers to you.
Cheers to you.
It's not necessarily your past, but before we get into your career, I'd really just like to ask you about your role with Stand With Asian Americans, why you've taken it, and raising awareness to the significance of the organization and what you are doing.
Thank you for starting this interview with a question that talks about a cause that is so close to my heart. Why am I with Stand With Asian Americans? Why am I sitting on the board of Stand With Asian Americans? The reason is because I want to take action. It is such a great avenue for taking action on a few things that really affect me, my community, and my 2 kids when they grow up. A few things about the Asian American community that might surprise you. So for instance, we are the fastest growing immigrant group in the United States. And by 2055, we're slated to become the largest immigrant group. At the same time, we're the least likely in the United States to be promoted into senior leadership. We're one of the most highly educated groups of people, and yet we are the least likely to be promoted into senior leadership. And the stats tell us then it's pretty dire. So if you look across Fortune 100 companies, we fill up about 13% or more of the workforce, and yet only less than 2% of us make it into CEO levels. And if you look at tech companies, big tech companies, especially in the Bay Area where you're living in right now, in some companies we're up to 50% at the junior to mid levels, and yet so few of us get into senior leadership position. So what that really shows me is that there is a broken ladder. There's a systemic bias that prevents a lot of Asian Americans from progressing right to the very top. And why should that be the case? We've seen from especially history in America that time and time again, the Asian American community gets told that we don't belong. If you look at, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, right up to the Japanese internment during World War II, to more recently, post-COVID, the discrimination that South Asians face, even more recently, if you look at COVID, this tracked and measurable over 300% increase in hate crimes targeting the Asian American community. I think it's quite clear that the picture that's forming is that there is an issue with how we're being viewed and how we're, finding belonging in this country. And I deeply love America. I believe that this is more than belonging. I believe that this is about a redistribution of power. This is about access to our community. And this is about being able to find the right opportunities, given the same opportunities to make progression. So Stand With Asian Americans, me and my friends, we call that the tip of the spear in this civil rights movement. We focus a lot on really evoking the law to be able to protect Asian Americans who might be facing workplace discrimination. And we work really hard on influencing corporate policies, changing how the nation views the Asian American community. And all of these things are so important to me fundamentally as a person, more and more because, as I grow in my identity as a mother, I'm constantly thinking, what is the world that I want my 5-year-old and what is the world that I want my 2-year-old to be able to grow up in.
Just as a follow-on to that, what needs to change? What action are you taking at the moment in order to drive that change?
Me at the personal level, I'm really, really thankful to be at the position that I'm at, where I run the marketing organization, the communications organization, the pricing organization within Kyriba, which gives me the ability to really standardize hiring processes across the board, really be able to look deep into the organization and ensure equal access to people, right? As well as, rewarding by merit. So all of these principles at my professional level, I now have the ability to do so, but it wasn't always the case on my way up to becoming a CMO. It wasn't that way for me as somebody that was growing my career. So it's really important to me that I embody the values that I want my children to be met with when they get into the workforce. And then at the Stand with Asian Americans nonprofit civil rights organization level, we have hired our first in-house attorney, and we have started fundraising for our workplace discrimination fund. And right now, really just looking into several potential cases where we can litigate the most egregious cases of workplace discrimination, and aiming to set non-threatening, not that we want to be threatening, but that we have the ability to stand up for ourselves, and we want to be that organization to help other people in our community be able to find their voice.
What's been so impressive is that journey that you've taken, and I kind of touched on it at the start there, the agency side, going in then to PR, a who's who of brand names from Microsoft, SAP, to now where you're working for PE-backed businesses, and you've gone through these such amazing milestones of taking brands public, going public during COVID, I may add, rebrands over a short period of time. Just talk through how you've kind of navigated your career to get to the position you're in.
How much time you got? I mean, it's been a really, really, wild ride, but to just kind of condense it down, at the skill set level, it's been phenomenal. I truly take pride in being, a CMO that did not actually start within the marketing discipline, like the strict, demand gen or, like performance marketing department, right? I started in the department of the business of influence. I started in the department of, storytelling. These things that have really made me so in tune with, cultural nuances, in tune with what the world is really looking at. That has allowed me to make any business that I am a part of find relevance, right, into the narrative of what's being said and done today. And I find that to be particularly helpful in my job today as CMO of Kyriba. On the personal front, it's been absolutely interesting to watch how my career has progressed. I moved over to the United States when I was in my 20s, and it's been 14 years since I've been, in the United States. And I will tell you this, I have now spent the larger part of my career in the United States than in Singapore, where I came from. The changes have been interesting because I came from a culture where everyone else looked like me to a culture where people don't necessarily look like me. I remember a couple instances of, as I was a young upstart trying to grow my career with lots of ambition, trying to learn as much as I can, I was pulled aside by a, I suppose, well-meaning manager telling me that the one feedback he had for me was to be more American because I wasn't American enough, and that he felt like it was going to hurt my career. And that was when I was probably at the junior to mid-level. And then subsequently, a few other narratives of similar nature came my way. But I've also learned that one of the things that is necessary in growing in the path that I've taken as an Asian American woman, as an immigrant, as a woman in tech, is to know when to pay attention to feedback that matters and when to simply ignore the things that are not helpful and just blaze forward. The other thing is that I have realized that confidence doesn't exist in a vacuum. I've had to take multiple leaps into the unknown in the United States and then build my confidence from there. That has been tremendously helpful for me from a very personal standpoint as I was navigating and growing my career.
So talking about your career, and I kind of teased this earlier before we got into this.
I'm scared.
One of the things, so researching you and just looking at your career, the positive feedback you seem to have from people that you've managed, you've led, been part of your team, and we've got a few snippets, and I wanted to kind of bring these out because I kind of want to get your live reaction to them.
Oh, snap.
I want to pass you these recommendations, and these kind of go back in time, back to 2013 we're starting with. What I'd like you to do is just read out the recommendation, and let's just see how you feel.
Should we read this out?
Yeah.
April struck me as a go-getter with a clear focus on her action plan once she has digested what the clients needed. The PR agency days. Hence, it was not surprising that she was given work autonomy, yet she was able to exhibit strong teamwork when required to. Her fast learning capabilities were highly leveraged when we worked together, as the environment required wit and innovation to handle challenges as they came. She will definitely value add to any organization she joins. And that was from 2013.
All the things I guess you're looking for in a person in a job, right? I guess from those early days, how much did that influence to the person you are today? I'm going to pick out a couple of points.
Yeah.
You know, the working in autonomy, but then a strong team player. You're learning quickly. Throughout the thread here is how fun you are to work with. How important is that to bring that balance in leadership of the personal side as well as the corporate side?
That is such a fun question. You know, I recently had a conversation with a couple of my team members, and we talked about, you know, just kind of what is a leadership value that you cherish. Mine was simply, really, it sounds cliched, but work hard and play hard. And that's what I encourage my team to do. We're relentless. We are those annoying people that just will not give up. We persevere, right? And that is a very defining trait of any team that I've run. That is a very defining trait of mine. I persevere. I don't give up. At the same time, I almost transferred that trait into my quest for fun and for adventure. Yeah. You know, if we're out having a company party, I never break any HR laws or rules or whatever. But it's a good time for people to just unwind together, dance the night away, tell a few jokes that are HR compliant. And that's been a very defining factor of how I run my teams.
We're going to give you another one, which is again from 2013.
April's diverse background in global communications and finance proved beneficial to managing a fast-paced team environment. Consistently bringing creativity to the table, April's a fantastic writer and campaign strategist. Her ability to pay attention to each project with immense detail and efficiency also contributes to a well-rounded skill set, making her a valuable asset to any team.
It's a hell of a confidence piece, isn't it?
That's really nice, Beth. Thank you.
Really nice, yeah. We met last year
in Chicago,
where we were talking about some research that we were launching around the board-ready CMO, and this need for marketing leaders to have a more rounded kind of commercial, skill set. We're talking about here this global communications, financial acumen. How important is it, in your opinion, for marketers to kind of broaden that skill set, get away from the single channel? You've done that, right? You've come from comms, you've come into marketing. So, what advice can you give to aspiring leaders or those in that position where they're perhaps looking for that next step?
The one thing that has really set me up for success, even as I was growing my career from PR and working in PR agencies, was just this huge and deep sense of curiosity, right? Like I was deeply curious about how businesses worked, how they grow, what are some of the levers that businesses needed. The reason why I made this switch to begin with, from PR to marketing, from marketing to marketing plus more, I think it's because I've always recognized that while I was taking care of comms or PR, that was one sliver of the entire business. I was curious about the entire business. So I would say to people wanting to really kind of get into the CMO roles, or CMOs wanting to get more validation from the board and from investors, it is to always lead with curiosity about the business, to never forget that we're working within the parameters of a business, and businesses are expected to grow, which means inherently everything that we've got when it comes to creativity, when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to campaigns, writing, bylines, anything that we do, we have to be thinking, how does this add or subtract to the growth of the business? It may not always come down to revenue dollars, but it has to get into some leading indicators leading towards revenue or leading towards growth.
Your final one, this is from more recent.
Yes, so Jamil says, April's a high-performance team leader. She sets ambitious goals and fully empowers her team to achieve outstanding results. She values getting to know her team on a personal level. For example, when her team size grew from 5 to over 20, she made it a point to meet with every team member on a regular cadence. Would still love to do that, but not possible anymore. This practice was greatly valued and built a high degree of team trust and collaboration. Finally, April is a lovely person and funny. If you're considering joining a team that April is leading, stop thinking and just do it.
Stealing lines from Nike there, Jamal. So just talk to me then about this approach you've taken, different environments, expanding teams. How do you kind of set the tone? How do you bring the personality out at the same time as you're trying to set standards and build kind of corporate excellence?
So it used to be that when I was running teams of maybe under 20 people, my approach was different, right? My approach was about really getting to know every single individual, because there's no me and there's no success without a team that really trusts you, right? And a team that you can trust. So trust to me has always been the bedrock of any team that I run. But when the team size was smaller, it was about getting more personal, more intimate. But now that I'm running, a team of close to 100 people, that is no longer possible. What I do instead is I focus on a few things. Number one, I consistently tell my org what to expect from me, what I expect from them and what they can expect from me. And I semi-joke to them that my goal as a leader for the organization is to be the most boring and predictable leader that they've ever worked for. And I say that not to say I'm not fun, because I know I am and we have fun together. But what I'm saying to them is they will never have to second guess my reaction. They will never have to show up at work and fear a volatile situation with me. And that is my commitment to my team, right? Which is I lay out my principles. They know what is it that I care about. They know my goals. Their goals are built on my goals. And they can always count on me for predictability. Part of what's so stressful about working in toxic environments is when you don't know what to expect from your managers. I work really hard to be that person that can earn that trust from my team. And the second thing that I've done, and this is something that I found really useful, is I specifically seek out the leaders, the line managers within my org, and invest in them. So I roll out programs just for them within my organization, where we have micro mentorship programs, where I'm kind of meeting up with different leaders over the course of one quarter, timed and finite, but during that quarter, pour deeply into them, right? And so that has really helped to ensure a certain consistency in the way that the org hears about our ambition, hears about our goals, hears about our execution, and also experiences leadership, as I would like leadership to be felt within the organization.
Onto the present. The marketing world that you've seen from agency side, your career in PR and comms, going into chief communication officer. When we're talking about brand storytelling, that's probably a lot of where the origins have been. It's been able to tell that kind of brand story. Where we're moving now as your marketing leader, I guess what's your perspective of how brand storytelling should play a role in your overall marketing strategy?
That's a really good question. Now, the thing that has really shifted from my time working in the PR agency world and my time now, our collective storytelling chops have been elevated. So in the past, I remember, I used to, perhaps people still do that, but I used to hustle at CES, right, the Consumer Electronics Show. I used to hustle for, like product launches for my clients. And those were the extent of storytelling. You were focusing on products. You were focusing on the launch. And these together were discrete, right? Like discrete, but not necessarily, they don't ladder up to a single narrative. But today, the way that, I've seen storytelling done right is when it is being treated as a single narrative that takes multiple forms, but more importantly, that it is emotive. More importantly, that, it really changes the conversation. It lets people know what you're about, and it makes a connection with your audience. Those are some of the biggest challenges today in storytelling, where it's really hard to get that right. And I don't think AI can crack that code for at least the next 5 years. So it's on us to really figure that out. Like, what is that human element behind the stories and behind the brands that we run? Just
to give an insight to what we've kind of shared today, we've had some brand side owners talking about their journey in building their platform for brand storytelling, getting in that journey. Then we've had on the other side of directors, producers, distributors. I guess from your perspective, what have you taken away? Is it a confidence that this isn't as challenging, or actually were you coming into this thinking, actually I know more about this than perhaps than others do? Yes, there's an element of knowing more and understanding more, behind the distribution chain, behind
filmmaking, for instance, right? Like, when do you go to Sundance? When do you not go to Sundance? And what are your ambitions for, a short film? These are really eye-opening for me to learn today. And ultimately, when it comes down to, what I've really taken away from today's sessions has been about taking such a precise look and just really finding the human element behind the stories, right? I can't emphasize that enough. Sometimes we get tripped up, especially people like myself and my team. Like, we work in a B2B tech environment, right? Where, we're a SaaS liquidity performance platform, and we do a lot of amazing things for CFOs and treasurers. But it may be challenging sometimes to tell stories beyond, products and features. So finding the human has been a key takeaway, and the filmmakers in particular have been such a standout for me during these sessions, just inspiring me with their worldview and how they find and locate those stories and then tell them. I was just so inspired by them.
It's incredible, isn't it? The fact that they can find these rich human stories from things that you wouldn't expect. And I guess that's the lesson for B2B brand owners in particular, because the stories are in there. That human side of what you do and what you offer to your customers is in there. Sometimes you just need to do a little bit of digging.
Exactly. What they all did, like the filmmakers showed us samples of their work, but what they all did was they tied a story to a mission, into a larger purpose, a movement. So, Bad Kid, for instance, was phenomenal, right? It tied a little child struggling with leukemia with the wider support of the world, right? The world, kind of embracing him and coming alongside him, and just the whole notion that you're not really alone in your darkest days. So we're tying some things that are not apparent at first sight to things that are resonant, deeper, human, purposeful. And I think that connection is where I'm really inspired to go find.
Do you think that the commercial outcome that is expected in a B2B marketing campaign kind of gets in the way of that?
I think it's not the commercial expectations, because brand done right leads to commercial success. I think it's people's limited understanding of brand that stands in the way. Perhaps, decision makers' limited understanding of brand. Because one of the key perceptions or that we have to shift as marketers is the perception that we're fluffy, that we're top of the funnel, we're brand people, right? And brand equals woo-woo, fluffy. And that cannot be further from the truth. When marketing is done right, I've seen that be the single most strategic function of any company. And so being able to just kind of really shift the paradigm of how investors, how board members, or even CEOs or CFOs might view marketing and marketers and brand is paramount. And so I would say that it's not commercial, sort of success is in the way, but people and decision makers' perception of what brand constitutes stands in the way.
Brand in itself is a challenge, right? Being able to justify the time it takes to do true brand building and have consistency. We used an analogy at the start of like gym brands, which could be any brand, right? You use a candy bar, use a gym brand. Like, what we're asking was, if there's someone like a Hendrix to an aviation gin to a grey whale, what are people most likely to pick? And a lot of people talked about Hendrix, right? Hendrix has decades of brand building, positioning. It is a premium brand, it's a premium product. Is the problem with some B2Bs because of the innovation? Brand gets a bad rep because it needs time, and it just isn't time to get that kind of market share, because everything's new, everything's innovating all the time.
There's an element to brand that should be evergreen, that should be consistent over the course of at least 2 years, right? There's that element of, what do you stand for and what are your values? There really should be that red thread consistency across the span of time, because you rinse and repeat that. So then the audience accepts that, right? But if I were to see a brand strategy shift because the market shifts, and every few weeks is different, or every few months is different, then what that company is probably relaying to the public is, we're not quite sure who we are. And that doesn't inspire trust. The single biggest challenge, though, here is perhaps in the way that we articulate the value of brand to our stakeholders. And that is an area that I know many marketers struggle with.
Inherently, because the way that our discipline has matured, that a lot of field marketers, demand gen experts, do you think it's there, or it's just because of the internal audience perhaps haven't been familiar with it being such an importance?
Inherently, many decision makers in companies, right, like they expect a direct tie from brand to revenue. They expect to be able to measure directly over a span of time and calculate your CAC and so on. But the truth about brand is that you cannot measure trust. You can see the effects of trust, right? You can understand, you can poll your audience and see, maybe directionally whether you're trusted. But it's incredibly hard to attribute something simply to brand, that you want an account just because of brand, unless we expand the definition of brand for our stakeholders, right? Brand is not just logo, it's not just colors, it's not just campaigns, it's not just video. Brand is every single touch point that a customer has with us as representatives of the company. In a way, if we expand the definition of brand that way, everything that we do that is aligned to the same North Star within the brand is what secures the next customer. So why would we not be investing in the way that we show up, in the way that customers relate to us, how prospects view us and believe in us?
We're going to move on to our final section, and this is something new we're going to introduce to this final section, what we're calling, what is your campaign crush or crash? And so I'm going to read out 5 statements. The campaign crush is whether you like it or agree with it, and then the campaign crash is whether you disagree or dislike it. So I'm going to start with using celebrities in B2B campaigns. So think Idris Elba, Keanu Reid.
Crush.
Crush. You love it?
Crush.
Why?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, we want to borrow trust from people that trust those people.
Fair. That's a fair point. Is there any particular one that you've enjoyed the most?
I'll have to get back to you on this one. I have not actually thought about that.
McConaughey with...
Not McConaughey for me.
No, not McConaughey.
That's very 2000s, David.
Well, he's quite recent. No, I'm not that dated with it.
Dua Lipa. How about Dua Lipa? Maybe.
That's the future. Dua Lipa with SaaS B2B. We should bring some SaaS maybe.
Exactly.
That's bad. Next statement is, B2B brands can't truly build emotional connections with their audience. It's just a B2C thing.
Crash. Why is it just in the realm of B2C? I don't get it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
We need to throw away these labels, right? Because at the end of it, we're selling to another human.
This is a B2B thing. It's the same in terms of we're selling to people. Of course, the buyer and the buying decisions is more complex, and there's more people involved, but I think we get lost in whether we should do things, shouldn't do things, what's right and wrong, who should do it. We saw today, again, some B2B institute saying that more decisions than are getting made
from personal decisions, like 55% or something like that.
Right.
Well, at the end of it all, if there's no storytelling and there's no emotions connected with your brand, then you're just a logo with a price tag. That's what we don't want to be.
Influencers and content creators are the next frontier of B2B marketing.
Crush. Define influencers, but principally that is a definite yes.
Yeah, it's an exciting space, right? Because it does feel like it's very much at that entry point of actually there's a huge potential here for how we can use it.
It's all about the content. It's all about the great, authentic human content.
And fitting into people's lives, right? As
Exactly
well. I think
right.
that's always been a lost art in B2B is like actually it's become part of people's everyday lives and the content they consume.
Can I give an example on that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I secretly have a crush on Kim Kardashian's success with Skims. Don't judge me, but she's done everything right. Everything right? I mean, the biggest part of it is she has really, really brought together content and influencers in such a humongous way that I don't think I've seen anyone else do it better. I mean, when she first started, people were skeptical, but now nobody can argue that she's a mogul, right? What has Skims done right? I mean, they started with a really clear message on inclusion, inclusivity, body positivity. Right now, they're, they've morphed and they've grown their brand to be about performance and ambition with their time with Nike and also the Olympics.
Huge.
It's huge. And then she brings in all of these content, all of these celebrities to really amplify that message. Nobody does it than Kim. You can quote me on that one.
Fourth one is B2B marketers are too focused on attribution metrics at the expense of creativity and innovation.
Crush. That is true, sadly. So unless companies realign their success metrics for marketing, where they're not inherently building in conflicts between sales and partner teams and marketers, that is unfortunately going to be that trap that many people fall into.
And final one, the emergence of AI in marketing will lead to a loss of human creativity and intuition.
I think it will weed out the ones that are not actually challenging themselves to get through and to utilize AI in a way that enhances them.
Is that a crash or a crush?
Can I do a half crash?
A bit of a half.
A halfie.
Yeah.
We'll do a halfie.
Last couple of episodes with two people very knowledgeable in the emergence of AI, and I think the overriding sentiment is it's those who know how to use it. You know, creativity and innovation is always going to be there. The tools that are kind of available to us, it's how we use it. And you can see it as a threat, or you can see it as an opportunity.
You're right, absolutely right.
Well, April, we've taken enough of your time today.
Thank you so much
for joining us. That is our latest episode of SpeakEasy. We're going to do a final cheers. I mean, I'm much further along my drink than you are.
I can see that. I'm going to play catch up now.
Talking, but thanks again. Cheers.